all know each other by now, somewhat. And David, you know that David is going to be here tonight, and we don't seem to have a select board representative. We can't put, Rich is an alternate, but he can't replace a select board ex officio member. So will be 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that acceptable to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And just, I guess, as this is, we have for a tie vote fails.
Right,
Is it
right.
bigger to Bruce
Right.
majority? So
Good point.
We're looking for a 4 now.
I was
Yeah.
at the ZBA last week and they gave me the exact same speech.
Thank you.
Are you a liaison person to the ZBA?
No, I was
He
before the
before the
ZBA.
ZBA. But that's a different subject. Let's get these guys going. So I'd like to open the continued hearing for the lot line adjustment. And unless people object, I'm thinking we should make sure the lot line checklist is complete, because there were some items that were supposed to be addressed. Is that consistent with your? Okay, so the first thing I see, and anybody who sees something that I don't, please raise your hand and let me know, is 2A6, location of existing and proposed easements. There was a request for easements to be shown in the town right of way, a letter from the fire department, and the gate. So do we have all those things?
I don't know if we have a letter from the fire department. I met with Mike Mundy at the property and we looked at where the existing gate is and where the fire department would like it to be moved, and I provided all that information to Rod, which I think is now shown on the plan.
Okay, could you run us
Sure.
through where the stuff is shown?
If you look at the Clee building,
Okay, Clee building. Just a second, while my colleague unwraps the Clee building, okay.
yeah, and you head towards Route 10, so down, you see the diagonal piece of property line, which is also a fence, so the fence and the property line coincide.
Okay.
There's an existing fence on that diagonal piece.
You mean a gate?
There's an existing
Yes,
gate on
existing
that.
gate on that diagonal piece, and it lines
Oh,
up.
where it says existing fence, is that the gate?
That's also where the gate is currently.
That's where the gate is currently. We're proposing to move it down to the just below there where it says proposed 14-foot gate in town right away.
Here. So
Mike Mundy did not, the current gate is lined up with the transformer and some bollards, and he was concerned about getting the truck in there.
Okay.
And so we relocated the gate to the spot shown.
Relocated on the map, or actually already relocated?
On the map.
Okay.
And so now we can pull right into the parking lot. And so we added a note, under to the right of the sheet for proposed easements and agreements, number 5.
Oh, where's this? Oh, okay, number 5,
Number
right of way.
5, a right of way from Crossroads Academy to the town for emergency access to the condominium. A, snow must be kept clear of the gate, and B, no parking either side of the gate.
Okay, so we're good with the gate. Anybody have questions relating to the gate? And you received instructions from the fire department, but not a letter.
I suppose we could get a letter, and maybe that could be a condition that David, when he's back, could see the letter, but, I mean, I talked to Mike about it, I think he just was waiting to actually see a plan and then send me an email or something, but.
All right, so is that, we could make a letter condition. Is that good with everybody?
And David can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Is that
We
good?
don't have to see it.
Is that good with everybody?
No.
Okay. Conditional. Okay, and the town right-of-way, is that the same thing?
Yes.
And that's shown,
Same note, proposed 14.
oh, okay, so you're showing it in the note, really?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And all the easements?
Yes, I listed the easements, and I also noted them on the plan. There's the garage maintenance easement on area 2 for area 1 owners.
That's it, right?
Yes, so
So-
there's also a maintenance utility easement for the underground electric and telephone. And we actually met with Eversource on site, and we placed the alignment of the underground electric and telephone on the plan as it crosses the condominium lot, area 1 to area 2. We called for the existing fence, a shared maintenance between area 1 and area 2 owners. And then we also listed the conservation easements. There's one conservation easement which protects the shoreline buffer of Hughes Brook, and one other easement that protects the lands to
On
the
the other,
west
right.
of Hughes Brook.
So that can't be built on.
Well, I mean, it goes, are you saying that the easement covers where the Clee building is, or like, where is the easement? You say.
The easement,
West
yeah,
Brook
the
Road.
easement is a 100-foot shoreline buffer, and the Clee building is existing and within that easement, yeah.
Does that mean can't be changed?
Well, I have to read the language of that particular easement, but I believe there are some things that the Clee building can happen with, but the idea is to protect the shoreline buffer of the brook in general. I
I
may
get
have a
that, but,
copy.
yeah, I get that, but I just, in that it's not really shown, that the extent is not shown, people don't read notes and then they look, oh, it's just in the shoreline buffer, need to go to the zoning board, and everyone forgets that there's an easement there, especially with this Connecticut River Watershed Council, I don't know where the easements are
Yeah.
actually going, but,
That's on the west side of Hughes Brook, and the other one is.
oh,
no-
only on the west side?
Yeah, the
Yes,
Connecticut,
the Connecticut
Yeah.
Watershed Council, that's the second existing easement that's listed there. The first one says conservation easement to the town of Lyme, and lists the book and page, which is this easement.
Mm-hmm. So is that on the east side of the brook, or,
East side of the brook, area within 100 feet of the shore of Hughes Brook. You know, whether there's a double easement on the west side.
I'm not really that concerned, I'm concerned more about what's on the east side of the brook and the fact that the extent of it isn't shown on the plan, that's all.
Well, yeah, I labeled the 100-foot shoreline buffer, which
mean-
also coincides with the easement.
I mean, we permitted the outdoor classroom to go there. Was
That's
that
true.
permitted in the easement area? Because it was never disclosed that that's where the easement went. So I would really like the easement shown on here, so things like that don't happen again if that's the case. It may not be the case,
All right,
but
so what do you want
I
the,
wanna know where the easement is on this plan.
So
specifically?
where the 100-foot line is.
What do
Well,
you-
if that's what it says, it could say 100-foot shoreline buffer and extent of
Vicky,
easement area.
I need language that's specifically what you want.
I want to see the extent of the easement to the town of Lyme,
Sure.
know what it covers.
Sure.
You want it shown.
Yeah, I wanna know where the.
All right, show extent of easement to Lyme.
I mean, I don't know what we were doing, putting outdoor classrooms there, and somebody was asleep.
Did
I'm
you-
not sure who the easement monitor is, but, or if that is allowed, but I don't.
You better know, man.
All right, yeah, go ahead.
So it's just on the east side, then we're not concerned about it.
I don't
on the
really
west
care so
side.
much about where the development isn't, I just wanna know so that when other things come to us,
Right,
that,
cause nothing can be built on the west side
They-
anyway.
just so you, I mean, there's some language here which, in this easement, which
Mhm.
talks about what the restrictions are in terms of that easement, and it specifically as it relates to what I'll call the crossroads part of this property.
Mm-hmm.
There's a limitation on new structures in that shoreline setback, not to exceed 2,850 square feet of footprint.
Mhm.
And
In
that-
addition to the Clee building?
In addition to the Clee building.
Mhm.
And so the outdoor classroom, if I recall, is about 600 square feet of footprint, so I think that would mean that that was not in violation of the easement, but it would certainly take away any remaining
Yeah,
structure that
it
could
would-
be built within that area.
It would reduce the amount, yeah, and then there's this little corner of something just below where it says area 2, just a little corner of that. Was that there when the easement was placed, or is that new also? It's right below the words to map 401. I mean, and then, you know, for that matter, there's the little, another little square off the Clee building. I mean, it's just, and it's, I mean, we don't enforce the easement, but in that,
Is that what you're talking about? That's an existing compressor for the air conditioning.
right, so
system.
was that there when the easement was placed?
It was, because the easement dated 1998, and the Clee was built in 1984 or
30 years
85.
old. I don't know what this is, that might not even exist.
That's where, below the,
That's the little, I think that's the
Well,
little.
can we just-
Light pen or like,
Oh, that's the dollhouse thing?
yeah.
Yeah.
Vicky,
it's a temporary,
can
yes.
can we simply say that, I mean, we're addressing it by, we want to show the
Show
extent
it.
of the easement to
Yep.
Lyme?
Yep,
All right. All right.
well, that's helpful, thank you for letting us know there was some additional coverage allowed.
So in 7, this may be something of a repeat, but we wanted it shown, the Clee power and electrical drainage and water lines, are those all shown?
Yes,
Okay.
so we've got the
There's
power,
sewer,
so the power line is shown, the water from the drill well up by the outdoor classroom. And then the Clee
Yep.
heads over to the barn, goes to
Mhm.
that. And then there's a septic tank and pump that pumps up to the leach field, and then the Clee is tied into that leach field as well. Yeah.
Okay, is everybody satisfied with that?
Mhm.
Okay, and then, number 8, 2A8, label the shoreline district line and wetland setback.
Yes.
Wetlands are shown and shoreline is on there, yep.
And I'll just add that those are not, we're not having that so that they're used for overlay calculations, because you have the first subdivision freebie there, so.
Right.
All right, 2B, the final plat obviously is to come. And then 3A2, add conservation easements.
Mm-hmm. Which are the two listed,
There are 2 existing ones.
Mm-hmm. Looking good.
So those are good. Did I do 3B? Oh, yeah, the 3B is the deed restrictions, which will obviously come later. You know about that, where?
I added the language.
Oh, the language is
So
on
right
it.
above that, where it says licensed land surveyor, you go
Okay.
to the upper note, the grantees by virtue.
Oh, great, okay.
That's right out of the. town.
Right out of the chapter and verse. All right, a dimensional conformance. And we need to make certain the lot coverage is compliant also for the next lots, combined lots. So that's where we get into your literature.
Yeah, and the colored
That's, most of that's my literature, but your colors, right?
Yeah, this colored, 1 by 17.
I had one question which may affect this in some of the calculations. So looking at the picture here, we extended the commercial district to the south, am I correct?
Yeah.
So I think the commercial district.
Wait, to the south?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So I think the commercial district actually continues like this, is that correct? Following
That may be the case.
1,000 feet from Route 10.
Well, I got that right from David. That's how we did that.
Okay,
Didn't Brett?
that's what I'm
Yeah,
talking about.
yeah, but that was voted in last year.
So my recollection was that these pieces would be,
Commercial now?
which probably helps.
Oh,
with the
I'm sure
calculation.
it
Does that
help you
look- that
immensely.
little
It
green?
helps.
The green would come out, for
Yeah,
instance, because
right.
that's ag soil. And the
Right, so
blue
it
would be
would-
the same.
It would help all your calculations.
Yes.
But
Just
the
boost.
numbers would have to be,
It would have to be adjusted, and you should do that for your own benefit and for accuracy. An amazingly good catch, frankly.
I mean, I would say that when I did all the calculations, I was most interested in making sure that both what's left of the condo and Crossroads would, be compliant with, and have some room within each of the 3 tests. And in the case of the condo property, it's more than adequate, the new
Well, yeah, that's,
rules, so that
I'm sure.
so that I agree that it would probably be good for the condominium association to make sure that number is as accurate as possible, but I don't think that it's realistic to think that they're ever gonna actually need the
Yeah,
additional
that's a
space.
different issue.
Right.
So many unforeseen things happen that for the town's records going forth, when all of us are,
Right,
wherever we'll be,
It's just gonna be brainless. It
I'll
just
see
doesn't
you
matter where we
in,
are.
that the town have accurate numbers and records.
so how would you suggest that we,
I think you should talk to David about,
Revise
first
that
of all,
sentence.
to confirm Eric's
Suspicions.
suspicions,
okay,
and then have him guide you as to how that would change things.
okay.
Yeah, he'll know.
Because we're gonna want those accurate numbers. Yeah, I mean, I don't see that,
Doesn't matter right now.
yeah. So,
Well, if we're confirming, not for the lot line adjustment necessarily, but if we're confirming numbers, I think we need to be sure that we're confirming.
accurate,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. So with the dimensional conformance and numbers provided, what I would say is we can consider approving them conditionally upon David's review. Okay, so,
yeah.
Yeah, I had a question.
go ahead.
In Appendix F on the lot 55, at page 2, the second one from the back there, I was trying to figure this out, and I wasn't quite sure. You have building footprint for each unit, right? But it's gross floor area, does that include upstairs and downstairs?
So, what, I had an exchange with David, when we were trying to figure out what the way to calculate, the existing coverage for the condo property. And the only thing that I had is something that, Basin Company had provided in 2001 for a planning board decision back then. And David's suggestion was, why don't you use the information on the tax cards, because that should be up to date. So I went through all the tax cards for all the condo units, and on some of them, it's hard to get exactly like what is the footprint of the building, because like a lot of these buildings have like 3 or 4 units in them. And so like in the example I would give you is if you're looking at the one that says condominium gross floor area analysis,
Right.
There's 5 units in the first building, and if you look at the tax cards, the basement appears to be 2 units, each of 900 square feet.
Right.
So when I tried to figure out what is the footprint of that building, I looked at all the different units and tried to figure out, well, what's the biggest space you could come up with? And I think that if you look at the way the floor, there's like 4 floors if you include the basement, and so the basement footprint of 1,800 square feet would seem to be the biggest footprint you could come up with.
Right, right.
And so if you go to the preceding page, on building 1 footprint, I use 1,800 square feet, and that's based on taking those two 900 square foot basement units and assuming that that's the biggest footprint you can come up with, and then the next 3 floors are each something less because the building is, you know, there's porches that are, open porches that aren't included in the gross floor area, but they're included in building footprint. That's where I was only going on the information that I had based on the tax cards.
Right, rather than just measure the dimension of each building, yeah.
Well, I have the dimensions from that 2001 planning board. David's concern was that if people had added porches or vestibules or patios since then, that wouldn't pick those up, so what I can say is that if I looked at the base on numbers from 2001, on the actual building footprints, they added up to about 70,000 square feet of building footprint. When I look at the tax card, what did I come up with, 68,000? So it's, and I think that that's probably explained because the town tax guy probably measures with a tape measure on the inside of the building, rather than going around the perimeter on the outside walls.
They do measure on the inside.
So, you know, so it's 2,000 square feet of building footprint that actually, based on looks like it, you know, was a bigger number.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they do.
But then if you look at
inside.
the walkways and patios, some of those have increased, so I'm not necessarily suggesting that the number is exactly perfectly right, but in terms of like overall, if it's, whether it's 68,000 or 70,000 square feet compared to the new limit of 135,000 square feet roughly, I think it just shows you that number could be someone from the condominium association in the future who wants to add a new patio will probably have to go through the excruciating exercise of calculating that exactly right, but at least I think we can represent that there's no concern about the compliance of being a conforming lot, that there's ample room that even if that number had to be adjusted slightly, you're not gonna all of a sudden find that the lot coverage is non-conforming and you've got a non-conforming lot.
How does everybody feel about that?
I just have a question, because I was off the board for a while, and I had like heard that Crossroads is really bumping up against huge problems with lot coverage, or sorry, not just Crossroads, but the whole condo association. So I'm kind of confused as to why all of a sudden that problem went away.
I can tell you exactly why that problem went away. It's because when David looked at the language in lot size, there's some language in there that talks about that the lot coverage is 20% in the commercial district. And then there's something about or 26,000 square feet for lot size averaging lots.
No, for the planned development, I think it was.
But
And
there's-
there was no limit for the planned development.
There was no limit for something about lot averaging. If it's not a lot averaging, the 26,000 is no longer applicable, and so.
That's right.
So before, if you looked at lot 55, the simple math was, it was 4 planned lots, and you take 26,000 times 4, and you get to 104,000 square feet, and that's what the 2004 decision limited, but. with
Didn't you, I wanna make sure I'm thinking of the same thing you're talking about, which is where you ended up with 10,000 more square
It's the
feet.
same thing there, right?
And
Yeah,
that's
it.
also
Yeah.
what he
Yeah.
did for this.
And
Yeah,
that-
so what that was, I
We talked about
believe
this
that
last
you had a
time.
planned development here, not a lot size averaging.
That's right.
Right.
So in the language, lot size averaging and something else have the limit, but there's no language in there about the planned development limit, so you got the, so
Yep.
you and they got the extra.
And David talked about that in the first meeting.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
yeah,
Right.
so that's,
Okay, that's,
seems to be
yeah.
a
right.
valid explanation.
Yep, okay.
All right,
So, so on page 2 again, so the additional gross floor area, you add that to the building footprint, is that right? And then the additional net, or do
So-
you subtract it?
No, so what, so on this page, so the first column is the building footprint. The second
Right.
column is, in the tax cards, there are some things which are included in the, what I'll call the gross, or not, that's not the right word to use, additional gross floor area. Like, if you have a second floor with a low ceiling, if you read gross floor area, it only includes area where the ceiling height is more than 5 feet.
Yeah, living space, basically.
So,
yeah.
but the tax cards showed like all the second floor space,
all right.
and then the part that is what's called additional net gross floor is only the second floor space that has 5 feet of ceiling height or more. So that's like if you look at unit 201, you know,
Right.
there's 576 additional gross floor area on a second floor, but only 432 of that is considered living area.
So, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what happens is the tax data it does not necessarily correlate with zoning data, because they're really approaching it from two different motivations, basically.
I think that may be the case.
Yeah.
But so from a dimensional controls, there's really 3 different controls. One is your lot coverage. So that's basically any impervious surface. So that's
Right.
buildings, driveways, walkways, patios.
Right.
So that's one control. Another is gross floor area. So that's all living area. So that doesn't include unfinished basements, that doesn't include basements that doesn't include garages,
Right, just living.
just living space.
Right.
And so, then the third is building footprint. So that doesn't include driveways and parking areas and
Right.
patios, but, you know, the size of buildings. So all 3 sort of work in different ways. And so if you look at the proposed limits for the new lot 55, the new lot 56, you would see that in the case of Crossroads property, the limit that is the likely one to be an issue, possibly, is lot coverage. And the reason for that is because the buildings are deep into the property, and it's a school, and so it has a big need for parking lots and driveways and stuff. There's a lot of lot coverage that goes to the driveway and parking. If you look at the condo property, they have, because it's near the road and all the buildings are closely clustered, they don't have a lot of driveways and parking, but they're near the top already on their gross floor area, because all these buildings are like 2 or 3 story buildings.
Right.
And so they might be able to add a lot of, you know, more driveways if there was a place to put them, but they can't add a lot more floor area because these buildings are all, you know, maxed out that piece of it. So that's how these controls are working, you know, differently for different properties.
And this page 2 is the floor area.
This is the floor area.
So did you use what the tax people care about for floor area, or did you use the zoning definition when you were calculating this additional, like it's?
I used the zoning definition plus what I could get off the tax card. So I used all of column 1
Mhm.
and then all of column 3. So column 3 adds up to 8,500.
I see that. So, but does that column 3 represent what's in the zoning?
It does,
or-
it
okay,
does.
Okay,
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I think I understand it.
'Cause a lot of new wall space is used for closets. So, you know, even if you can't stand up in it, you know, people have storage in there, so that zoning does include closets and stairwells, but not porches, you know, so I just wanted to know what standard you use for your definition of gross floor area, if it was this, or if it was what they had on the card.
As much as I could, I used what's in the zoning.
Okay, well, that is what we would want to use, because what we're looking at is zoning compliance, and there's a different set of definitions that might go with what's on the tax card.
Right, I mean, for example, I don't know which unit, but some of them have open porches on a second floor, and that doesn't count towards gross floor area.
Does not include, it does not count toward gross floor area, yes. It would count toward footprint though.
Right, but that's a
Yeah.
different calculation.
Yeah, totally, okay, just, yeah, wanting to be clear about what we're, yep.
All right, so any further comments or questions about this? All right, according to my information here, that would that would address everything outstanding on the checklist. So the outstanding items are to show the extent of the easement to Lyme. The letter, a letter from the fire department, and that the dimensional conformance be reviewed by David, including the likelihood that some of it is now in the commercial district. And I think that's everything. Let me just make sure. 1, 2, 3. All right, so with those outstanding items, I'd like to propose that the lot line adjustment checklist is complete with the conditions that I included.
So we did some waivers too, right?
Yeah, the waivers were on the complete boundaries and area of the entire parcel. There's no existing change, and we waived the final thing, the board may waive the requirement of a perimeter survey, same reason.
Okay.
So I think those look to be the only waivers.
So it's complete with those waivers, and then we can.
We'll add the
take action
conditions
with the conditions.
when we vote on it, but complete with those waivers is the better language, thank you. So I'd like,
15 minutes.
I am,
Okay, good. Okay, just wanted, okay, yeah, so
Just
complete.
a
with
side,
the
back to the conversation about the size of the board here and the votes necessary to carry majority. Having not been here for the previous meeting where this checklist was gone over, I think I need to abstain on that one, on voting.
does he need to?
Having not been part of the discussion where half the things were.
I don't know that you need to, because
Well, I'm,
you want to,
having not been here, I don't think I should vote.
so you're recusing yourself. Or
Abstain.
Or abstain.
because
or
He
abstaining.
doesn't have a conflict, he just can't vote on this because he doesn't have.
Okay, so you're abstaining. All right, so now you're down to 3.
So
Although,
as-
were you here for everything?
Yes.
Can we
Well, this
put
was
him
before.
on and then take him back off?
Was Rich an alternate for this one?
Oh, no, he wasn't an alternate.
Right.
No, okay.
I was here, but I wasn't
Yeah,
an
no,
alternate.
that's not gonna work.
So as a follow-up question, does majority now mean 2 out of 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Majority is those present and voting, you're not voting.
Okay.
All right.
So that helps.
So, 2 waivers. All right, so to repeat, I'm making a motion to declare the application complete with the 2 waivers. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
And all those in favor? All those opposed? All right, so passes 3-0 with Eric abstaining. Thank you for being patient, because tonight I'm doing triple duty.
Thank you for doing that duty.
All right, so now, any discussion? Yeah, I mean, I think we pretty much had the discussion. All right, so, anybody have anything to say? All right, I'd like to propose a motion to approve the lot line adjustment with the conditions I already mentioned. Is that okay if I don't mention them again?
Fire chief extended the conservation easement shown on the plan and conditional upon David's review of the zoning conformance, including consideration of location of the zoning district boundary.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so I'm making that motion. Is there a second? All those in favor?
I guess I'll abstain again.
Okay. All right, so now we get to go to the, now we move on to the bonus round. I would like to close that meeting, that hearing, and move on to open the continued hearing for the site plan review. And I would like to propose that we really don't need a checklist for this, because we're not really making change. This is really just to approve the lot coverage changes, right?
It's to confirm
The numbers.
the numbers,
And-
which if the zoning, if David's review of the compliance for the zoning, will
Yeah, so,
involve a review of all the numbers, so in a way we should just wait for him, especially.
we could wait for him, or we could also consider conditionally approving it with his okay of those numbers.
Yeah, I mean,
Which we just did in some sense.
Well, we did for the lot line adjustment. So I'm just wondering what,
We're saying it's zoning compliant, what we're not saying is how much is actually remaining or
because
available.
we don't have, we want him to confirm the numbers.
We don't know, so I don't know how
We
we
don't know.
can,
That's-
so I don't think we can take action on this request until David's gone through the numbers and go, yeah, did this change?
so we don't have to know, just know that it's zoning compliant, we have to know.
Well, isn't that what you're asking for, is how much is left, or,
Well, so if you went back to February 28th to that hearing, at that point, Crossroads was asking for this board's confirmation of what I'd call the expanded lot coverage created by the addition of this area to lot 56.
Right.
And then at that hearing, this board wanted also confirmation that what's left of lot 55 would be conforming,
Right.
which hopefully in the last month we provided information to support that. But Crossroads is still more interested, I guess, for selfish purposes in confirmation of the expanded lot 56. But since we did all the calculations for lot 55, I mean, I guess it makes sense to have some body or this body confirm both of those sets of controls going forward,
definitely.
how you want to do that.
Well, that's what we're talking about, is we want David's confirmation of numbers for the lot line adjustment.
Right.
And I think what Vicky is suggesting is that we're gonna need those to Is that, am I?
Yeah, to actually, at the end of, when we take action, it's a final set of numbers that you guys go forward with, we go forward with, and the rest of the condo goes forward with. And I don't know that we have I still think that the stuff on the condo side is in flux right now.
Okay,
So that might be the prudent
Yeah.
way to go for all of us,
I
because
mean,
we,
I don't feel comfortable otherwise,
Okay.
saying, yeah, those are the right numbers. I, really want him to go over it. I did not sit with my calculator, and do this, and I know he probably worked with you on it, so,
Well, those numbers-
I thought you'd be.
Well, if we're confirming the numbers, we need to have the updated stuff
Yeah,
from
and-
the commercial districts.
and
We need to
Eric,
have David talk about it.
Eric's discovery is gonna, I
Just give them
think,
more.
I think you're right, and the numbers are gonna change, so
Right.
we can't, even if we wanted to go with the numbers, that we felt comfortable confirming the numbers you gave us, they're gonna be, likely be different. And so, until we have confirmed final numbers, we don't wanna put,
right,
we don't wanna say
Right.
what
So
they
they're
are.
gonna have
Right.
more, and Crossroads should be near Crossroads, it should be the same as what has been submitted
Should
to us,
be.
is what.
Should
yeah.
be.
Right, the crossroads for the area 2 piece sheet is in.
All right, well, in that case, what I would propose is that we continue the site plan review to, next time is
Next time it's.
April 11th. There's a hearing for the lighting, but we could probably,
We're gonna have a lot of public for that,
yeah,
you know.
I'm sure.
Shit.
But you never know, I mean,
I'm
actually,
pretty sure we could squeeze both of them in.
yeah, so.
Yeah, it's not gonna take too
Yeah,
long.
shouldn't take very
yeah,
long.
all we're gonna do is have confirmation from David of what the numbers
Yeah,
are, and is there anything else that,
well, this map should show the, the easement boundary and also
what, you mean the inset?
the, well,
The
wherever the
when you say,
conservation
no,
easement-
when you say this map, you're
Okay,
talking,
this map should show where the easement boundary is, this map should show the proper districts. Cause if it's,
Right.
so the commercial district is, so there are probably two things that need to be changed.
so what, I mean, let's be specific.
Well, the zoning district, assuming that it's not, I mean, it has shifted to the south, which I remember voting, I remember that vote.
Yeah.
And,
So the commercial district
Yeah, that's a given.
needs to be added to the inset or to everywhere?
well, I'm not sure if it's, how many
It's
places
not,
it is.
it's not here.
I think it's
anyway.
shown here,
Definitely the inside, it's not,
Yeah, I don't think
it's
it's
not on
shown
the
on
main
this
map.
one.
yeah.
And what else?
But the
And
number,
just the conservation
Yeah,
easement, that was one of our conditions
Yeah,
on this.
along Hughes
Yeah.
Brook.
Yeah.
Hold on. Commercial district should be added to the inset.
Which should be shown correctly. I mean, even
Yeah,
though
the
David,
boundaries of the commercial district.
everyone,
should be
yes,
shown.
I don't think David meant to
it
give
was
them
in
all.
town meeting last year, I think. You
Was.
know where the
It was-
old
it was the
gas
Brett-
station is?
The Brett Ryan.
They moved
Yeah.
the commercial district down to that.
Yeah, we added like
Only
20
on this
acres.
What's that?
All right, and what was the other part?
It's kind of like spots.
We added
We already wrote this one we did.
I mean, so that's already gonna be shown anyway.
That's a
Right around
condition,
that
but I'm
stuff.
saying, while you're fixing the map,
It was just one
This
property, right? It wasn't on
zoning
both sides,
district
was
boundary
it?
should be
You've
shown.
gone
The
there?
commercial.
I actually.
Yeah, okay.
I don't-
All right, so are we set with that?
Yes.
All right, so we're proposing continuing the
Yeah.
hearing to April, I believe it's April 11th, check with David.
Okay,
It'll be the second Thursday.
Second
And,
But the lot line adjustment's approved.
yeah, that's approved, and we're continuing the site plan review to April 11th when we get the final numbers.
Yep.
yeah.
Or is everybody good with that? Do we need to vote on that, or we just?
No, we do need to vote to
And
continue it.
Rod's
Okay.
gonna-
So
Rod's
I'd
gonna
like to
change the
propose-
map here.
Yeah, I wrote that down.
Two weeks.
What's that?
Or,
2 weeks.
Is it 2 weeks from now? Yeah.
Do you know if we'd be going first or after the other hearing?
Most likely the hearing would come first, because it involves the public and.
We want your comments too.
We could also, since the lot line itself is approved, there isn't really any pressing need for this, like if it would be easier to move us to the
It's
second-
really
the
up to
second date in
you.
April?
We
I
can,
don't-
we
Well, I
can,
don't-
we can get you in on April 11th, you probably,
we said
you're not gonna go
here.
first.
Right.
If you want a time certain, I believe, I mean, I don't know what David has scheduled or not, but, I mean, I would advise you, if you can, just to come in, the sooner the better, get it done with.
All right, that's fine. It won't, shouldn't, I don't think it will take very long, right?
No,
I don't,
Because I don't think
I
the
wouldn't
waiting
think so.
phase.
I mean, the only thing that would throw a fly in the ointment is if David, you know, says, discovers that it all should have been done in base 7,
Mhm.
and, you know, that sort of a thing.
Right.
You know, if if there's an inversion in the Universal Logic Center, or the Home Office, whatever he calls us all, otherwise, I think it's unlikely.
I think they already have.
Yeah.
Sounds like-
So,
Beat me up, Scott.
we'll shoot for April
Okay,
11th?
that sounds good.
All right.
We just voted that, right?
Did we, all right, I am making that motion, do I have a second?
Second. All in favor?
Okay. All in favor, nobody's opposed. All right, we're good.
Okay,
All
thank
right,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, continue. God, these minutes are gonna be interesting.
Be sure to send them to yourself to edit them.
Right, yes.
Oh, those minutes, I'm thinking, it's not really anything controversial.
No, I have to get all this right. All right, so we have minutes. And minutes. I did have a few insubstantial changes. Is it in or unsubstantial?
Oh,
I don't know the difference.
Clearly I don't.
Inconsequential?
Is insubstantial a word? It is a word.
Insubstantial, unsubstantial, whatever.
Inconsequential.
Not important, unimportant changes, but one is a comma, one is a misspelled name, one is members of the public none, and taking out the word had made prior to town meeting regarding the proposed to is an extra word. So basically,
Who is the misspelled name?
Chris Ramsden is spelled Ramston,
Oh, yeah, the D.
okay?
Yep.
So,
That's what you do, right?
yeah, how come you
I
didn't?
know, that was a.
So I'd like to propose, does anybody want to look at this and see what I did here?
No, I think what you just said is good.
No, it's all the green marks.
I'm not voting anyway, so, you know.
Okay. Oh, all right, so this is oh, you were here last time, okay. So, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as amended by John. Is there a second?
Second.
Can you, can he second?
Oh,
As a-
No, you're not appointed to serve for
Okay.
everybody, you can't, we want you to sit here and participate in the
Alright.
conversation, you just can't vote unless
Okay.
you're appointed to serve
Okay.
in somebody's place.
All right, so then
So-
then I need a second.
Second.
Okay.
I'll be the third second.
Okay, Tim, second. And this, what is it, so is it 3, and you're abstaining again? So, E abstain,
What the hell you are tonight.
yeah.
That's why
Thank-
you got more votes than me.
All right,
Yeah, I made them come back.
so we've done that.
Yeah,
and
I did make them come back again with my.
So, next on the agenda are the discussion of proposed changes to the zoning ordinance. I think really at this point, we want to get survey results. And we also want, in terms of the thing that we are looking at, that senior housing article or anything else, we want David's septic numbers, hopefully
Yes.
by the next meeting. So, I think that whole item number 4,
Yeah.
we're not gonna
Just
do
table.
anything tonight.
Okay.
Are we gonna, was there any feedback from the zoning amendment which did not pass at town meeting last year? Or, I mean,
This
3 meetings
year?
ago?
Well, I know Rich didn't like it.
That was not fun.
We know Rich didn't like it, but I, you know, are we gonna tweak it, or we're just gonna let it go?
Well, I think what I wanna do right now is, I'd like to let it go for the time being, if we wanna revisit it later in the season, but
Yeah, I mean, at
I
some
think we have
point-
bigger fish to fry than that.
Right, but at some point in the future, if somebody does wanna do a lot line, or lot
It's
size
gonna come
averaging,
again.
it's gonna really be a problem, I think, it could be a problem, so at
Yeah,
some point. we
but I could conceivably think of two arguments why it would fail, one being that it removes the special exemption.
Right. Special exception.
Well,
Right,
transfers the decision-making from this board, or from that board to this board.
right, but one might also argue that it failed because it was more liberal in terms of granting.
Well,
Building
you
footprint. So
asked,
those are the
you asked
opposite
about,
ends of the
you act,
spectrum.
and
So I didn't know what to make of it.
To the point, your point, I have received feedback, that, I know Rich's point and Rusty's point, so I knew that.
Right.
But apparently, we pissed everybody off, because I also received feedback that, it was too liberal, on the other end.
Right,
So,
so
go
when I was
figure.
thinking about that night or two after town meeting.
Well, that
okay.
didn't ever occur to me, but I was told, frankly, that there were
Well, believe it or
parties
not,
upset that-
There are people in town who like
Yes.
to.
Who don't want that.
who don't want
sort of
that.
development.
Yeah, and it was that meant that on a very small lot, you could do, no, if it passed on this very small lot, you could build conceivably, because it's still a discernment on the part of
The planning board.
the planning board.
Right.
But, there was some sense that it was too generous.
But if
And-
we're trying to encourage lot size averaging, encourage people to.
Well,
close together,
you
I think-
don't have to convince me.
Yeah.
Well, the citizens have
But,
spoken in general,
exactly,
so.
that's, citizens have spoken. The other thing, I think that I also heard is, that lot size averaging and that whole section, because it's all printed out, was just it's a very complicated,
yeah.
confusing thing, and that was a problem too.
Right. Yeah, if somebody can't understand something, then they don't like to vote for it.
Right,
Well,
So,
it's in the zoning.
It's already in there.
Yeah, I know.
we weren't making it more complicated.
no, it wasn't making more complicated, but it's
Just
a
to understand
complicated,
the whole
it's
concept
complicated
is
to
difficult.
understand.
I mean, if anything, we were making it,
Yeah, it
We're adding
was
clarity to it,
simplifying,
yeah.
but that doesn't change the fact that it's an article that is a complex article, and, hard for, it takes anybody who comes on the board some
Yeah.
time to understand it, so,
For years.
yeah. All right,
We haven't memorized the zoning ordinance.
so,
I have to memorize it every 2 weeks.
so, I know, Rich, you wanted to address the board about you went to a conference.
Yes, I did. Actually, I got two things that I'd like to talk about.
We'll do the second one first.
Okay.
Just so you don't forget it.
Yeah.
I'll keep them short. Basically, I did go to a conference in Manchester, the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority had a conference on home ownership, and I have a trip report, which I won't bore the group with today,
Good.
because,
You mean
Man, we
a,
can get up by 8.
a written out thing, you mean?
yeah, well, I mean, what I sent.
Oh, the thing you sent.
And I can take,
Oh, yeah, no, I think, why don't you send that to everybody?
all right, I'll do that, and then.
And, yeah, because I did go and look, and so, and it was helpful for me to go and look, and I think everybody should have
Right,
that.
so,
So send that to
I'll send
David.
it to David, he can send it out. The other thing that,
Well, David already has it, because you CC'd
I
it
did, yeah.
to both.
So-
So just tell David,
I'll tell David that, please send that.
please send it out.
So that's
That
item
was
number
approved
one.
at the.
We'll find a time to hash it out, and I'll give you a little more expansive description.
Okay.
Number two, driving home from the meeting, talking about the build-out, I thought of some other ways to proceed with getting a decent sense of what lots are available for building and what their potential might be. And
Speak.
so-
In the
Yeah.
Lyme Common District.
in the Lyme Common
Yeah.
District, and so, that's something that, yeah, I guess I could do that now. Because the third thing I was gonna say is.
Well,
Well, I think-
you said two, now this is already
The third
three.
thing I was gonna say is, if we did do the Lyme, well, if we do more work on the Lyme build-up.
Which we will.
LCD
Oh, yeah,
build-up,
well, it's
no,
not if.
If we do it, I'd like not to do it the next meeting, the 11th, because I will not be here. And I've thought a lot about this, and so,
Okay, well, first of all, we're gonna have a hearing, and we're gonna have,
Ross.
and the,
I really wanna push this forward, so what I would say is, whatever we do, is not gonna be something, I think the primary thing that I wanna get done next time is get David's data,
yes, right.
and I don't think that'll be.
David's
you'd be
data's
missing-
not gonna be available, he's like out. You know what happened is like spring sprung and all the people want their building permits now, it's pretty crazy.
Really.
So, oh my
So the
gosh,
roads are-
it's just like, whoop.
The roads
Our
are posted, so they
offices-
can't do anything yet anyway.
Well,
they
anyway,
can.
Okay.
They can get their permits, they're not building right now.
I'm gonna
Yeah, so-
find out whether he can have that data, and if he can, he can't, but if he does, I do wanna look at it. and-
Good, so I'd like to be present at the next time we do a lot of work on the build-out, so, and that may just happen naturally.
We won't have time to do a lot of
We,
work.
yeah, we're not gonna be
Good.
doing major
Well,
We
work.
might do some.
Right,
Yeah,
good, let me give you, I've written this out, I will also send this to David, but since you're all here, let me tell you what my thoughts were. Septic, good way to weed out properties, and, I mean, if there's, no way you can put a new septic system in a parcel,
yeah,
then done.
let's roll this along.
Water, do we know, is there some way to find out what the town water company?
Mhm.
Yeah, we met with the water
Yeah, and
company.
actually, there's two, they have a whole backup system.
Yeah.
From what Colin said 2 years ago when I was talking about it.
Well, they both
There's
came in
plenty-
and told
There's
us.
plenty of water.
Yep.
Great, okay, so.
You might even film that, you could go back and use.
I think this
Yeah.
might have been pre-cinema days.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. well,
But there's a whole backup
So-
and there's a lot.
so, I
we
mean,
talked to them about that.
The question I ask is there enough water? And if there is enough water, that's great. If there's not enough water,
What we were told at the time, which was probably, might even be as long as 3 years ago, or even, oh God, I can't keep track. But Mike and Colin came in, and they had the school, and they had a backup, and,
I forget the gallon.
yeah, I forget the
Gallon
gallons.
numbers, But there,
but-
there's a lot extra.
But the extra wasn't all usable, because you don't wanna get down too low, but there was substantial available.
Also, not everybody is on the water company.
Right.
It's in the common area.
That's right.
And also, it's not inconceivable to sink a community well. There's plenty of water around,
Yep.
and to be able to use that.
So the short answer
I don't
is,
think we've got a
I don't
water
think
problem
water-
unless
Right.
it's
Good.
contaminated.
yeah, unless
So-
it's contaminated.
So-
There was a contamination last fall.
But there was a boil water order on the water.
Wasn't there?
I have no idea.
There was
I didn't
something.
I didn't hear that.
No, that's cyanobacteria in Post Pond.
No, there was something,
Well, there was that.
I know I know about
Yeah.
that, but there was something last fall, I think.
I don't know.
I don't
So,
know.
Well,
so
was
let me,
something
let me
about kids
finish
drinking
my
bottled water,
thoughts,
so,
and we can work it into the calculations. One is septic, two, if water is a limitation, that might help us weed things out. If it's not, it doesn't help. There's dimensional controls, obviously, if you've got a lot of the parcels that are in the Lyme Common District are already pretty small. We have to count both the building footprint, the lot coverage from the building, as well as driveways and all.
Well,
So-
I think she didn't get the driveways, but she
Right.
got the buildings. And lots of them are actually really big, but they've got a lot of wetland on them.
Oh,
So
right.
it's like taking,
Yep,
the
right.
analysis that she did was good, because some of it could,
Exactly,
take out the wetland.
that was good.
Yeah.
The last thing, I'm not quite sure what to call it, but it's kind of economic feasibility.
No, it's probably none of, we can't go there, because really it
Well-
depends on if it's me, is it
Mhm.
economically feasible? Or if it's Simpson Development, is it economically feasible? I mean, you know, so
Mhm.
that depends on the circumstances of the developer.
Well, so, I mean,
I mean, what's your standard?
I know,
Rich's standard, does that make it economically
so I know a little
feasible?
bit about what, goes into development. It's my second career here. And, you know, you look at building costs of $200 a square foot. You look at, land acquisition, you look at the septic, water, all these things, and they make an expensive place. And so, I think one of the things we were talking about was, you know, well, could this parcel be subdivided and put another home on it? And as I say in my note, I don't want people in town thinking that the planning board has designs on their property.
Well, you just lost me there.
So,
Back,
So-
what do you mean designs on their property?
well, so I think I heard, maybe I'm wrong, I think I heard us saying, you know, could this parcel be subdivided?
Yeah.
And, you know, what would be possible to build on it?
Right.
I think just to say, well, everybody's gonna wanna to subdivide their parcel and build on it, and that's how we're gonna compute a maximum build out. I think it devalues.
Yeah, but see, we're just trying to find.
Yeah.
Well,
the-
wait,
the-
I-
the
wait,
Let me
maximum-
finish.
I'm
Let me-
still
let me-
trying to
yeah,
understand
okay.
you. So
So
finish.
I think it devalues the value that people place in their property.
That's not what we're looking into. We're trying
We're
to
not looking
find,
at- yeah.
you know, I mean, we have to, when you do a build-out, you're doing a build-out.
Mhm.
It's not, you're not,
We're not looking at maximizing the value of your property, what we're looking at is maximizing the number of units we can put in the Lyme Common District area.
we wanna know, based on today's
Mhm.
standards, what the maximum build-out is.
Mhm.
That's an informational thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with what people are gonna do or anything, I mean,
Well,
that's a
but-
personal thing.
But the question I ask is, you know, what incentive would person X have?
It's not about incentive, it's, incentivization can come later, but informationally, we need a baseline information so that we can determine, first of all, what's possible,
Mhm.
Carrying capacity stuff like you were talking about, water and.
and what's
septic.
advisable.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. So
I mean,
good.
If we were to change the zoning district, and we've got two big houses for sale
Mhm.
on the common right now,
Right.
both of which are so big that they could be divided up into more units than currently exists
Sure.
there. So if we were to change it from, you know, 6 to 10,
Well, I mean,
that would make it more feasible for somebody who might want to come in and buy
the way the
that.
senior housing article is written now,
Yeah.
it's up to 12, I don't know that
Okay,
it'll
well,
say that.
whatever, I'm just saying that provides an incentive for somebody to
But-
come in and convert those buildings to more units.
Yeah, but we're not at the point of incentives, we're at the,
I know, but
this
I'm
is
saying that-
totally way past where we're at.
Right,
In order to understand what can and might and should be done, we need this baseline information, period.
Right.
We're not at the point of incentive, but please,
Well,
help me with the
I mean,
word.
yeah, incentivization, but, I was thinking kind of the other way, that it's, I think there's a large number of people for whom there would be no way possible that they'd be interested in subdividing the property. And for us to say, oh, well, you got a 3-acre parcel here. You
Well,
could-"
those, but that's,
That's their
but,
choice.
no, but planning and
Mhm.
zoning is not about specific, that's not what we're dealing, I mean, we're dealing with going 10, 20 years ahead. I may, well, forget about me, but somebody may be living
Mhm.
somewhere
Mhm.
where they have absolutely no intention of subdividing, but they're struck by an asteroid
Mhm.
and the next owners are very interested in subdividing.
Or the only reason they buy the property or could afford to would be so that if they could subdivide it, flip the lot,
Mhm.
and then they can afford to live there. I mean,
So,
that's very
so
commonly done.
when that's why we're looking at it this way.
Okay, all right, good. I'll still send this to David
Sure.
and he'll send it out.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I haven't said that.
good. That's all I have, thank you.
That's all?
Really?
All right. And anybody else have anything?
I wanted to thank all the envelope stuffers
Yes, thank you.
and,
Thank you.
and thank
Thank
Rich
you.
for.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Sorry,
Rich
done,
really,
or-
really carried. the load
Is it
on that.
all done, or is there still more?
There's a little teeny pile
Okay.
of 40 envelopes that need to get.
So how many total was there?
There are 815 postal patrons in Lyme and 50 in Lyme Center.
So 865.
So so the stuff online isn't correct?
You know, it's like 35 or something more people than what it says
Right,
online.
right.
I'm not,
Oh, I know,
I'm not gonna worry about it. We're
seems
so far
weird.
under budget and.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
the cool part about postal patron, so the town of Lyme has a permit. It's 27 cents for postal patron mailings. So it just says postal patron 03768, and they just go and they stick them in the mailboxes and all. And it's 28 cents a piece for Lyme Center, because somebody's gotta drive them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's the difference is between what?
27 and
Tw-
28.
Oh, an
Yeah.
extra
An
penny.
extra penny to get it into
Wow.
Lyme
So
Center.
they got 50 cents for doing that.
That's right, I mean, it's like,
They got an extra 50 cents.
You couldn't talk them down?
no.
But the ones who get driven to mailboxes,
I don't know what to do. Oh, you mean the rural routes?
yeah.
Yeah.
These are going to rural routes.
Yeah, right.
Those are all Lyme. None of those are Lyme Center. Lyme Center's only.
That's right, yeah.
the
It's only
ones in
post
the
office boxes. Yes,
So my house is
Right.
past the Lyme Center post office,
yes.
But a rural route,
and I'm still over 3768.
yeah. Yeah.
So that's only 20.
Listen, it's
Yeah.
such a
The
deal.
post
It's-
office is run by,
Yeah.
They're run by large numbers. It costs the same 55 cents to for me to send something to you as it does to send it to San Francisco.
oh yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I mean,
How else is that?
so,
So they're mailed, Rich, and people are gonna get them tomorrow?
no, I think, I haven't opened it, I think we have a check here. And we'll stuff the envelopes. And if somebody wants to stay and do that for a couple of minutes, that's fine, or I could take it home and get them stuffed. I mean,
How many are there?
there's 30.
I'll do a couple.
Yeah, we can do it.
Why don't you bring them over now? All right, we're closing the meeting.
Oh, I
Okay.
think we should keep filming this so we
So
can have a
that
little
people-
kumbaya.
Everyone's stuffing.
Yeah, it's just like breaking bread, right?
Just